seconds.
Is this where the damn drumming and the music kicks in?
Yeah. Good evening, beautiful people, or good morning, good afternoon, good brunch, good lunch break. Whenever you're listening to this, I don't know when you're listening to this or where you're listening to this at, but whenever and wherever you are, I hope you are having a good one. Today is Monday, February the 14th, 2022. That is right. It is Valentine's Day, and obviously, my schedule is wide open, except for On the Pipe Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tyler Shepardson, and this is another edition of OTP's Weekend Review with Stu. I'll be joined in just a few moments here by Stu Baylor, and we will talk about everything going on throughout the weekend. And in the sake of all honesty, I'm not going to be joined in a few minutes by Stu Baylor because we just wrapped up our conversation, and I'm recording this afterwards, which is why I can then tell you, you're in for a heck of an episode tonight. It is a real treat. There is a lot of nuggets and a lot of information that you can take out of tonight's show, out of tonight's episode. It was a really good one. So talk about tech tips. We talk about track walking tips. We get into a little bit of preview into GNCC. We end things out talking about the GOAT himself, Caleb Russell. There's a lot of stuff in this episode, and I thank you for being here, and I thank you for joining us, and I am very excited that you are here and joining us for this very special episode of OTP here on Valentine's Day 2022. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. We got the U.S. Sprint Enduro that happened. We got the Full Gas Sprint Enduro that happened, and then we got the Mideast Hare Scrambles that also happened down here in my neck of the woods, so we're going to discuss those events in further detail going forward. But first, I want to say a big thank you to our friends over at Beta Motorcycles, Beta USA. Beta Motorcycles is the official manufacturer of On the Pipe Podcast. Beta Motorcycles has been family owned and operated since 1905. I was going to do the math. That's like 117 years is what I'm going to go with. They manufacture the finest enduro, trials, and dual sport motorcycles that are known for their premium quality and rideability. Beta motorcycles are the best looking bikes on the market and back it up with their superior performance. Head over to betausa.com for more information on their available models or to find a dealer near you to get yours today. Beta motorcycles, they really are. Like, they're some of the best looking bikes out there. If you've seen Evan Smith or Jonathan Johnson or anybody in the past on one of those Beta motorcycles, maybe in the XC3 class, you're going to have a contender in there. They really are some great looking motorcycles, and what they focus on is the rideability of them. Can't wait to put more time on a Beta motorcycle myself and give you guys all the ins and outs. But go over to betausa.com. In the meantime, check out their lineup and what they got. They have a flavor for everything. They have a bike for anything you could want a bike for. They also are the only dirt bikes that I know of with a 6-month warranty. So who gives you a closed competition motorcycle or a closed competition anything and says, hey, you got 6 months. If something goes wrong, give us a call. We'll get you dialed in. They also have their very own suspension in-house. You can buy your Beta motorcycle with your suspension already set up for you, and it comes in the crate with your suspension in it. Not stock suspension for everybody where they just kind of guess at your weight and riding ability. You can tell them your weight, your riding ability, what you want to do with it, and get your very own Beta motorcycle with your very own suspension already set up for you. So check them out, betausa.com. Super pumped to have them on board for OTP. Also, as always, shout out to our good buddies over at Armored Graphics. They are a local company here in North Carolina, but serving the world. Their graphic kits have been all over the world, all over the U.S. You can find them at Armored Graphics on the socials or at armoredgraphics.com. If you check out armoredgraphics.com, you can browse the graphic kits that they have for your specific machine. And you can order your very own and get your logos, your numbers, whatever you want on there. And if you use promo code OTP20 in your shopping cart checkout thing, you will save 20% off of your order at Armor Graphics. If you want your very own OTP specific kit, shoot me a DM and we'll try to get you lined up. Let me know what bike you ride. I will send you an example of that bike, and then we'll move things on from there. But nevertheless, check out armorgraphics.com and see what they can do for you. And they're the best around. Best quality, best designs, best people. So check them out, Armor Graphics. We got a lot of exciting things on the plate as well. This is never going to become a show where we're reading ads for 45 minutes. It's just not going to happen. Not how I operate, and I don't want you guys to listen to that. If there's somebody that I talk about on this show, it is because it is a product or a service that I have tried, tested, and do believe in. So, yeah, just leave it at that. But we got some things in the work, and I got some exciting news that's going to be coming up here in the very short meantime. As always, be a friend, tell a friend, whatever you're listening to this on. Drop us a subscribe. Click the subscribe thing on whatever you're listening to it on. Be a friend, tell a friend. If you like what you're hearing and somebody else doesn't listen to OTP yet, maybe shoot them an episode. Let them know what they're missing. And we're opening things up. We are taking off. We are blasting to the moon over here at OTP. So if you have a company or some way that you would like to get involved, reach out. We'll see if we can't put something together as we roll into this 2022 season. It's going to be sick. We're going to get right into our results. Mideast Hare Scrambles, they opened up their 2022 season. I talked to Bjorn Hamrick on the phone earlier. He is the man, the myth, the legend, the one that's been putting on those races since 1993, former trail boss of the GNCC series, and a lot of the same staff, and Ricky Towery, the official, the flagger at the GNCC series. A lot of the folks you see over there also work at the Mideast races. That's why there will never be a Mideast race on a GNCC weekend, because a lot of the crew shares responsibilities between the two series. It's I talk about them. They're my local series. It's how I got started into racing, and so that's why I like talking about the Mideast series. I think Bjorn and the crew do a really good job with the series, with the tracks, and so I like to support them, so that is why. We're bringing you the Mideast results. They raced in Union, South Carolina, just down the road from the Big Buck facility the weekend before Big Buck, so it was a good tune-up race for everyone that went there to race. But looking at the pro class, it was Brody Johnson. Brody Johnson taking the overall win at the first round of the Mideast Hare Scrambles. In second place is the 2021 reigning, defending Mideast Pro Class champion on a Beta Factory Racing Beta motorcycle, and older brother to the overall winner, Jonathan Johnson. Jonathan Johnson grabbed second place. So Brody, we talked to Jonathan on the show after the Sumter National Enduro, and we talked about his little brother Brody Johnson beating him. And Jonathan sounded like that wasn't ever going to happen again. But this weekend, it happened again. Brody Johnson, shout out to him. He's making his return from a broken leg himself. He actually shot me over some supplements and everything that he used to get his leg back on track and healing. So shout out to Brody, back on the bike. He tore the top amateur class apart the year before last and then sat out pretty much all of last year with that leg injury. He came back and raced a couple races there at the end, but he is back, he is healthy, and he is winning races. Stoked to see Brody up there on the podium with older brother Jonathan Johnson on the podium as well. And I know I built it up a lot, and I'm not making any excuses, but Jonathan, it sounds like, forgot to tighten a bolt somewhere and didn't have back brakes. I don't know what the story was, but he didn't have back brakes. But we don't need to mention that. We just need to mention that Brody Johnson won the race. Jonathan Johnson in second place. Toby Cleveland will round out your pro overall podium in that third place position. And then Mideast has a couple different AA classes. They have the AA Elite class. That was Levi Elliott taking the win. And then Taylor Johnson, who is actually the cousin of Brody and Jonathan Johnson, he gets second place in the AA Elite class. And then Lane Whitmer will round out the podium in that AA Elite class. So there is a AA Elite, and then there's another AA class. That's the AA Old Men. That's the fast old men. It's 30 plus. It's a vet class, but it's a vet AA class. And my good buddy and friend of the show, Dustin Simpson, Destructo, he went out there, won the AA old man class, but also beat the AA elite class, which I thought was cool. So they wouldn't let Dustin race AA elite because he's too damn old. So he raced the AA too damn old class and still beat all the youngins anyway. So that was cool to see that ride get put on by Dustin. Then down in the southern end, I almost said South Carolina, but Full Gas was in North Carolina this weekend. I gotta remember that. I keep getting that mixed up. But we had the sprint enduros going at it, and I say sprint enduros because now we have two of them. This weekend marked the return of the Full Gas Sprint Enduro, the OG Sprint Enduro on the East Coast, or in the country, really. Last year was off sorting things out, and then this year they are back. On the last episode of OTP Tuesday, we talked to the new Full Gas owner, Josh Koscheck, about their race and everything going on, so it was cool. I was actually down there, checked out that first round of Full Gas, but there was also the U.S. Sprint Enduro going on as well. That was an ISDE qualifier at South of the Border MX. Taking the overall win at the U.S. Sprint Enduro was Johnny Gerard. He is on fire right now, especially at those Sprint Enduros, but basically everything he lines up to, he is a contender. So Johnny Gerard grabs the overall win. Lane Michael, the reigning defending U.S. Sprint Enduro champion, he grabs second place in that pro class. And rounding out your pro podium was Josh Tothlike both. So shout out to those three guys getting it done. They are the three riders on your podium. But looking at that Pro 2 class, Cody Barnes, lighting the world on fire right now. He is on that Honda, and I think he's really gelled with it. I think he's got it dialed in now. He goes out there, not only grabs the Pro 2 win, but ends up third place overall on the day in the Pro 2 class. So shout out to Cody Barnes. I thought that was awesome. Thorne Devlin, another guy. He's looking to be a contender. He switched bike brands this year as well. He puts in a great ride himself, ends up second place in Pro 2, and then rounding out the Pro 2 podium, Mike Witkowski on that Yamaha gets it done, lands in that final podium spot in the Pro 2 class. Looking down to the Pro-Am class, Bubs Tasha, brand new ride for this year, that Teely Energy Racing KTM. He goes out there, gets it done, takes the win in that Pro-Am class. Bub Sasha is going to be a guy that we're going to see at the top of these amateur ranks throughout the year, and he starts things off this weekend in the Sandish of South Carolina, grabs the Pro-Am Sprint Enduro victory. Then we got Chase Colville, another guy that's going to be right there in the top amateur mix, wherever he's at. He grabs second place on the weekend, and then Jason Tino rounds out your Pro-Am podium at round 2 down there. Looking at the women's pro class, Taylor Jones, the reigning defending champion herself, she goes out there, grabs the win over Corey Steed. Corey Steed's, switching bikes this year. She ends up in second place. And then rounding out the pro women's podium is going to be Shelby Turner going down there and getting it done as well. So that is how things shook out at the U.S. Sprint Enduro. The Full Gas Sprint Enduro, I was lucky enough to attend it on Sunday. Got to see it. As you guys well know, Full Gas is a series near and dear to my heart. The series that Jason Hooper started and made the format of racing explode in America. Is actually the fastest growing discipline of as far as series starting and rider participation in the country, according to the AMA. So Full Gas is where the roots all started for the Sprint Enduro format. In my opinion, that is where the US ISDE team started finding the success. We went 90-something years without an overall ISDE rider, and quite some time since a championship-winning team, maybe if ever, I'm not sure. But since then, we've won titles after titles. We got 2 overall ISDE winners. We got trophy team championships. We got junior trophy team championships. We got women's championships. We got club championships. And I think a lot of that coincides with the formation of the Full Gas Sprint Enduro series in 2014, I want to say. No. 15, 16, 17. 16. I'm going with 16. 15 or 16. Anyway, you get it. Jason Hooper started the Full Gas Sprint Enduro Series. It kind of paved the way for sprint enduro racing in the U.S. and also translated to our success internationally with that format. Last year, it was a no-go. This year, back and running. It was cool to see. It felt like a full gas. It really did. It felt like a full gas. It was pretty cool, and we actually talked quite in depth about that with Stu here in a minute. So I'll save you that time. I'm not going to ramble about it. We're just going to talk about the results. Taking the overall win, it was former Full Gas champion Stuart Baylor Jr. grabbing the win at Outback ATV Park. One of the coolest places to ride. People sleep on Outback ATV Park, mainly because it's called Outback ATV Park. That place is really cool. Dirt is cool. Tracks are cool. Is where I won my first race ever. That was cool to me. But anyway, he goes down there, grabs that overall win, and in second place, Canadian motocross standout Tyler Medaglia. He usually comes down and rides some of the first off-road races of the season each year, so it was cool to see him in the mix, keeping Stu honest, keeping Strang honest. Them boys were all going back and forth and pushing each other. And then rounding out the pro and overall podium is a former Full Gas Sprint Enduro champion himself, Josh Strang. He goes out there, gets third place. Now, he took last year off from the Sprint Enduro format, so adapting back into it, he ended up grabbing some test wins later on in the day and was able to grab that third place position in that pro class. So it was cool to see those three especially pushing each other and pushing the pace. Down in the 250 Pro class, Ben Nelko continues his domination in the sand. He grabs the 250 Pro win, or the Pro 2 win, or I think they're calling it XC2, whatever the case. Ben Nelko won it. Rui Barbosa gave Ben Nelko a run for his money. Rui Barbosa is looking very fast as well. It was cool to watch them two battle. And then also Evan Smith. Evan Smith right there in the mix. He's also on that Factory Beta Racing beta machine. He rounds out your 250 Pro class podium. Looking down at the Pro-Am class, it was skinny Tyler Palmer. Goes out there and gets the Pro-Am victory, gets his hand on a check over former XC3 champion Zach Hayes, who finishes in second place in that Pro-Am class. And then rounding out the Pro-Am podium, it was Dominic Morse. So that is how Pro-Am shook out. And then looking down at the women's pro class, Mackenzie Tricker took 10 out of 10 test wins on Sunday to grab the women's pro victory. In second place, it was Elizabeth Perez getting it done, putting herself in that second place spot. And then rounding out the women's pro class podium, it was Jessica Morrison. So these riders are all down there vying it out for the championship money that has been put on the line for the pro classes at the Full Gas Sprint Enduro Series. I did a quick calculation, and it was actually sparked from our conversation with Stu that we're going to get to in just a moment here. But whoever wins that championship gets $7,000 for the overall pro championship. You split that up between 6 rounds, that is $1,166 extra dollars that the Full Gas Sprint Enduro champion will get per round. So you take that $7,000, split it between 6 rounds. That's an extra $1,166 that you're putting in your pocket. So I thought that was cool about the championship bonuses. But like I said, we talked about that, and so I just wanted to look it up real quick, and that is what I came up with. Anyway, I will stop rambling now. We will get straight into our conversation with Stu Baylor. I will let you know there are some things that we forgot to cover. It ended up being such a good conversation. We lost track of time. We lost track of what we were talking about. He told me he had 30 minutes tonight, and I took like 20 minutes to set up, and then we talked for an hour. So super gracious of Stu Baylor's time, and it's a good conversation. I can't wait for you to hear it. We will be at Big Buck this weekend. I'll talk a little bit more tomorrow about it on OTP Tuesday. We got 3 guests lined up tomorrow for OTP Tuesday. So after this episode, make sure you're checking back in for that show coming out tomorrow, where we'll talk a little bit more in depth of what's going on and what to expect for this weekend. Got some exciting news to announce. But as always, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And with no further delay, let's get down to the overall champion at Full Gas Sprint Enduro Reloaded, taking number 1 place on the weekend, Stu Baylor. Stu, how's things going?
Good. Just staying busy. Obviously a little cleanup after the weekend, not much, which is always cool about that series or the sprint style series, and um, getting everything situated around the track. A little bit of Valentine's Day stuff, buying flowers, cooking dinner, and then trying to get. I think we probably have 50 plus riders staying at the Shoals this week. I know we've got 40 campsites booked out, and a lot of people have more than one ride, and so it's going to be a busy week. But trying to get everything sorted, and looking forward to that week leading up to round one of the GNCCs.
Sounds like a full damn house down there at the Shoals.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've got everything from 50 riders to quite a few pro riders staying there, and um, on the motocross, supercross side, even the off-road side, and a lot of Canadians moving down since our new trainers joined, and obviously he's a Canadian, so we're definitely growing, and it's cool to see. 'Cause the last couple of years, I've put a ton of time, ton of work into this place, and my uncle's put even more, and we're finally getting to see where we can see the light at the end of the tunnel and starting to reap the benefits, and we're getting the results. It was cool. I was actually at both sprint enduros this weekend, hanging out at one and helping some of the riders out with some lines at one and racing the other. And at both events, I had parents of some of the kids that are doing really well said, hey, we were planning to stay for a month, but we're going to try to figure this out. Results today don't lie, and although I don't know what works for every single rider. I think a lot of it's mental, but I think the program we've built in the last few weeks and months, really, we've got a really fast group, and hanging around fast company makes more fast company.
Iron sharpens iron. But man, what's the deal with that? I see you with Liam, and I'm like, all right, so is Stu racing US Sprint Enduro, or is Liam racing full gas? And what's going on here? So you were at US Sprint Enduro on Saturday, and then you won full gas on Sunday. What's the deal?
Yeah, so I actually went down Friday night. Had to sign some paperwork there Saturday morning at Brown's RV, getting a new RV for the GNCCs, and I stayed with Liam, just trying to help him out with some lines and some different things. He's he's still really early on his knee injury, so I give him shit just because I'm obviously tougher than he is and coming back from injuries. But no, it still is on the early side for the injury that he had. I mean, his one leg is 2 inches smaller in diameter than the other, so I know he's weak. I know it's going to take a little bit of time, but trying to help out with line selection with he and Bubs and a couple of other kids at Shoals. Ty Ely, he should have joined us on the bike rides, but he was too damn lazy. So, but yeah, it's it's good to see both tracks and kind of take some input and insight, and I tried to help out the guys at both the races that we've been working with, and show some different lines that I would choose, and just more or less kind of trying to share. But the full gas was what was in my contract, and I signed before full gas was officially done, and that was what was in writing for me. So that's where the bonuses are, and obviously it's a good or better payday for one day, and to me, to pick up a third series, it's that's kind of a big piece. And I look at a lot of these series. I mean, not hating on GNCC, but damn, our payday at a GNCC ain't much different than a full gas with 10 times more people. So, to me, when somebody's throwing out money like that, like, I'm gonna come chase it. I'm gonna get a little noble, and it's one of those series, both of the series, I got to say, like sprint enduro racing in general, you just get that high intensity, and it's good for me to get that good balance of precision with intensity leading into the GNCCs.
Man, and I did not plan on getting into this topic, but you just brought it up, and it sparked a thing in me. I think Full Gas paid out $1,000 to win 1 day of racing. I think U.S. Sprint Enduro was $750 for 2 days of racing. But the GNCC thing, they post their by the numbers things after every single race, and it's just the amount of riders. So if you just do the math on the amount of riders by their numbers, that's not including spectators. And then, like you said, they're paying out similar to what the Sprint Enduros are paying out. GNCC pays $1,250 to win. Full Gas paid $1,000 to win. US Sprint pays $750 to win. But then with the championship bonus on Full Gas, and then you factor, if you win the championship, you factor that into the win bonuses. It's actually more.
And I mean, percentage-wise, yeah. So this is what I guess I was looking at this weekend. I was looking at, what do we have, 61 minutes of racing. You know, you take $1,000 and divide that by 61. Well, I'm making $16 a minute. You know, GNCC, I think it's what, $1,250.
Yep.
Divided by 180. So $6. I mean, it's double, or more than double. So that was, you know, I mean, to me, it's worth it. You know, I'm looking at every minute I spend and racing at that intensity. It's, you know, another minute that I can possibly get hurt. So I want to make sure that I'm making good money for it. So, you know, for me, like that style of racing is fun. And I do pay attention to the paychecks on top of that, you know, obviously sponsor bonuses and stuff like that. And that's why I chose the Full Gas over the US was having Yamaha backing, on that, you know, in my contract. And I think, you know, Strang signed on the same year I did. So he's probably in the same place where Full Gas was in his contract, because US Sprint wasn't created at the time. So, you know, it was,
dude, shout out for that. That's pretty cool. It seems like a lot of people will try to restructure it, but now that Full Gas is back, hey, we're signed up to race Full Gas. We got Full Gas bonuses. Kind of let you double up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it makes it it definitely makes it worthwhile. I mean, for me, like, you know, not only just the bonus the series throws, but an extra bonus. I mean, you know, financial side, it's definitely one of those things you got to consider. I mean, you know, the weekend makes another RV payment or whatever, you know, whatever you want to call it, skid steer payment in my case. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely benefit to running these series. You know, aside from the financial side, it just, you know, for most of us pros, we have to balance it and make it make sense to us. And you know, a lot of series will kind of text, call, whatever, say, hey, we're doing this race. We're going to throw off a $2,000 win. Will you show up? Probably not. Realistically, I mean, I have, like, I enjoy racing outside of that. But for me, I have to think about big picture, you know, what is it going to affect if I go to this race and get injured? And how's it going to look? If I get injured at the practice track, people are going to say, oh, well, he's training. If I get injured at a one-off event, people are going to say, what a dumbass.
Oh, he should have never even been there. He should be focusing on everything else.
Exactly. And not only that, every contract that's written in this industry that I'm, you know, that I say I reap the benefits from, I do to an extent. But every contract is written one-sided with loopholes to get out. You know, obviously I've seen the loopholes that people can use to get out of a contract. So, you know, I mean, every contract basically says if you don't clear this series, whatever, you know, and it's not just one of the manufacturers, all the manufacturers. I can tell you every single contract that goes down Pro Row says the same thing, that you have to get clearance before you run, whatever it may be. And that's just a way for them to get out and fire you in case you blow your knee out at one of these races. So, you know, when people ask me about doing these one-off events, it's not just that I'm saying no because I don't want to go. I mean, I love racing, so obviously I want to go, but It's because there's a little bit more at stake, when it is your livelihood, and rightfully so. I understand. I'm business minded, so I see both sides. And these guys, let's say that we're taking into consideration Yamaha and what they put into my program, and I'm just going to use numbers that aren't accurate, but let's say that they pay a guy $100,000, and that's what they've got into me for a year. And I'm going to start using some numbers that are a little more accurate now. Let's say that they most likely give, I think I get 6 bikes. So for them, that's $60,000. They add in a mechanic. So now there's another 60, now we're up to 120. They have to either lease a rig or own a rig. They have to pay for the fuel a year, which is $20,000. They have to pay for a rig driver. There's another, even if he's part-time, you're looking at $40,000-$50,000. A full-time semi driver at this point is anywhere from 80 to 100 plus. So, when you start going down the list, each of us as riders are $1 million investment. And a 4-man team, you can break up some of these expenses, but bikes you can't, motorsport you can't, parts. Hell, I go through $50,000 in parts a year. So when these guys are really sitting back and looking at this, they have to figure out all of these numbers that they put in to my program. So I'm $500,000 to $1 million. In 2 years, I'm $1 million out of Yamaha's marketing budget.
And that's not even getting into the beer budget.
Correct. Exactly. Which is why I wish Busch or Coors or somebody would just pick up the tab. I mean, damn. Yeah. So, I mean, I see their point as well, but it is frustrating when you want to go and do these races. But, to wrap it back up, I mean, that's, like I said, Full Gas was in my contract, and that's kind of why I went there. And I like to see new series, and I ran the U.S. Sprint when it started, and I'm running this one, and I feel like my name definitely pulls people to the races at this point in my career. And I know this weekend it definitely did. I heard people discussing, that they heard our podcast. As a matter of fact, there was people that were calling and texting me that didn't even know that Full Gas and U.S. were different. They thought a Sprint Enduro was Sprint Enduro. And I mean, it wasn't just one or two. It was like 20 or 30 people did not realize that they were separate. Like, they thought, oh, well, I thought Sprint Enduro was Sprint Enduro. So, that was cool. Like, it shows that I can help fill that parking lot. And I went to both events, and both were very, very close in size. I felt, I couldn't tell you exact numbers, but I think, looking at it, I think Billy's race was just as big as they always were. And I think that Full Gas was as big as it ever was, looking at, my perspective. But the Full Gas was also different, which is good. It's cool. It allows for more riders with the time that they have now that they're doing the 2-day format.
Yep.
And I know you were there. I mean, dude, our to run 10 tests, the amount of time we did, they had everybody off the track, and we were ready to go by 30 minutes every single time. I mean, it was completely like the timing was killer. Those guys kept everything extremely organized, which, to be honest, I did not expect. I mean, I really like, I mean, Koscheck's probably listening in and ready to whoop my ass at this point, but I did not have any faith in that. I mean, to run the scoring, to run the race, to get the ribbon back up between tests, there's a lot going on there. And for his first event, I thought they did really, really good, staying on top of everything. I mean, even I was there pedaling the day before, and those guys were on time. I mean, I think they were a couple minutes late, and they took an intermission once because some of the older guys were wanting a little bit more of a break between the 30 minutes because some guys were taking 15 minutes to test. So, it was really, really good to see that they kept everything so organized. And I don't think that it split the group. I mean, most Sprint Enduros, I think, are usually a couple hundred riders, and I would say that each series definitely had that. So It was good to see.
And I didn't. Obviously, a lot of people know my involvement in this whole sprint enduro debacle, and my whole goal throughout this thing is I'm not promoting one or the other. I'm not affiliated with one or the other. I didn't. Obviously, we're going to be full gas focused for a lot of this because you're racing full gas. I was at the full gas, and like I said, I was kind of involved in the whole process that went on last year. If you guys haven't heard that, the show, the podcast that I have up called "Why I Disappeared for 3 Months," that'll explain everything you need to know about the two Sprint Enduro series. But Stu, like you said, a lot of people don't even realize the difference. Like, a lot of people don't even know that those are two separate things, especially now that they're on the same day. It's like, oh yeah, the Sprint Enduro, when there's two of them going on. And I even have this guy come on the show every Monday. You might have heard of him. He races a little bit, but he has actually referred to US Sprint Enduro as full gas every single time. I think every time you've mentioned US Sprint Enduro, you've called it full gas in the past. Someone pointed that out afterwards. But yeah, it's a lot of people do think of it that way. They don't realize that there is a difference between the two series, or now that they're both back and they're both operating, it's like, where do we go? What do we do? So, I mean, you are probably the only human that rode all four tests: the two sprint or US Sprint Enduro test, and then the two full gas tests. And you are a former champion at full gas, and you raced some of the US Sprint Enduros last year. What did you see as like what was the overall feel between the two tests? Were they similar? Were they different? Was one fast? Was one tight? What did you see in all four tests?
It's hard to say. I mean, obviously very different venues, different terrain. But what the differences that I saw, like the US Sprint through the enduro test, it was tight, national enduro style. So it was very direct. You kind of go out for a while with a few sweepers through some tight trees, carrying good speed, and just going enduro versus enduro. The full gas sprint was all dozer to skid steer width, so no really, and like enduro style stuff, you could fit a four-wheeler or skid steer pretty much around the entire test.
Which one of those do you prefer?
It's
sprint
tough.
enduro.
It's tough. So I'm a national enduro guy, so you would think naturally the full gas or the US Sprint I would like more because it was tighter, and more direct, kind of like a national enduro. But the full gas was slower, overall slower, and it was back and forth, very, very funneled down. When I was pedaling the test, I almost was like sitting there going, man, it's really going to feel butchered. But I think the way that it slowed it down enough to where it wasn't like bar banging slow because it was skid steer width, but it was slow as in corners, back and forth, almost to the point you felt dizzy while you were bicycling it. I was like, man, this is really not going to be fun. But riding wise, it was really cool for me, at least at my level. I feel like I could push absolutely as hard as I wanted to and not really get super sketchy. So this weekend, I definitely would say I preferred that test, which kind of surprised me. I didn't obviously race on the one at the US Sprint, so I can't really say that, but looking at the two and having something different, I did enjoy that. The US Sprint, I would say, when we're comparing cross test to cross test, obviously you've seen the helmet cams, so it's tough. It's tough to say exactly, but they didn't have a ton of field to work with. They had more moto track, so they ran a lot of moto track. The full gas had some moto track in it, but not a ton. And again, it almost felt butchered when we were pedaling it, but when we raced it, it had a really, really fun flow. There were 3 turns that were kind of just blah, boring, but definitely fun. Definitely similar cross test to what full gas was. It was ribboned a little bit narrower, but I think that actually slowed down some of the wide open pace. And again, we were still flying. I mean, it was over 3 miles and we were done in 6 minutes. So, we're still, or less than 6 minutes, I believe, something like that. It was 3.5 miles and what was our time? 6:17, something like that. So, no, 5:17, I believe. So
yeah,
still, fast test times. I mean, so it's still a fast test overall, but being ribbon a little bit narrower kind of made it to where you had to pick and choose like what corners you were going to set up, and also made it a little bit more one line, which made the track rougher. And it was weird. So they had amateurs race the day before. So when we first went out, like the lines were amateur lines, which are much different from our lines. So we just, they will go right to an inside post and be right up against it. But with the way we lean, if we lean in using their rut, we're blasting our knuckles or our face on a tree or a stake or whatever. So the first couple times through both tests, it was kind of tough to navigate, but it was different, and it slowed the pace down, and it kind of changed the way you had to ride and where you could attack and where you couldn't. So a little bit more thought into that, where the full gas or the US, sorry, see there I go again. The US, they have the minis and then the pros set the lines. So realistically, everybody kind of follows our lines, and even the youth riders, they're fast. So like they set good, clean lines, and it was, just a different style. Obviously same style of racing, but felt like a completely different style of riding that you had to do between the two races. And not knocking either series, but this weekend, like definitely not knocking the US Sprint, but like this weekend, the Full Gas had a better track. It could have been the venue though. There's definitely more factors that go into it. I understand that. I've laid out tracks, so I know that feeling. Like it was one had a lot of motocross, and that's what they had to use. And one had some really deep sand and a little more field and a little more cross test to it.
Yeah, and so kind of going off what you said, and once again, Koscheck is probably listening, so man, don't be swinging at me or Stu.
He's gonna beat your ass.
But I was also surprised at how well it ran. Which, first of all, he's got a crew of assassins. I don't know how much you talked to him about the people working for that series.
Yeah, all the Marines there,
dude. Every single one of them is like special forces and combat. And dude, don't you better get some act right if you got something to protest.
Dude, even if you've got a complaint, just don't say it.
Yeah,
just don't complain.
Think to yourself before you approach that. But yeah, so I mean, it's ran by a bunch of military dudes, and like they're not like I feel like there's two different types of military dudes. These are assassins that are working this thing. But I think that's part of why it went so efficient and went so well. But everything was like to a T, like starting on time, and it was cool to see. And I actually texted Hooper after I got there, and I was riding around for a little bit and kind of taking it all in. I texted Hooper probably 4 or 5 tests in, and I was like, man, you'd be satisfied. That's all I said, is just you'd be satisfied. And it felt like a full gas. It was kind of weird. But when I first got there, one of the first things that Koscheck said to me is, it was like right before the test was about to start, and you were still out pedaling the track. And Koscheck was like, man, I don't know what Stu's doing. He rode the track like a few times yesterday. He rode it a few times this morning. Like, this is like a second or third time out there. So how much do you ride those tracks, and with the level do you have to ride at a sprint? I mean, it's a lot more intensity than, say, a GNCC. So I guess, how much do you ride a sprint track, and then how much do you ride a GNCC track? Like, is it as important to you to ride and see the GNCC stuff as many times as you see the sprint stuff?
3 times. I try to do each of them 3 times. And the reason is, like, so the first time around, I'm kind of getting a lay of the land. I'm kind of just looking at the track, kind of trying to remember which direction it goes here and there, overall geographically, not necessarily turn by turn. I remember bits and pieces, but it's more geographically so that I can remember waypoints. Second time through, I'll remember enough to go ahead and know that it's going to go double left, triple right, whatever, or right, left, right, root on the inside, and I can start setting it up 3 turns in advance. So that second time around, I'm thinking about lines, and then the third time around, I pedal it pretty fast. I'm more like thinking, okay, does this line work at race pace? Coming in fast on a bicycle, even, it's obviously not as fast for riding on a dirt bike, but it gets you that sense of, okay, this is going to work or it's not. So I like to try to aim towards getting everything at least twice, but that second time you kind of remember the track, but the third time is when you can really see yourself hitting that line. So that's just what I do. And that's where I kind of prefer. And if I have less time, I take more time pedaling. So, if I have less time to walk or pedal, I'm going to take my sweet time and really look ahead and try to remember each turn. I'll look down the track and backwards the way that I just came from to figure out, okay, this is my entry, this is my exit, this is the marks I got to hit. So I've actually kind of thought about it. Maybe at the next Sprint Enduro, I might possibly do a little bit of a track walk for some guys and see if that's, if it may be tough. Like, I don't know how many people would want to come on a track walk to go over lines. That might be too difficult. Maybe just doing a video. I was kind of talking to some people this weekend, and they said that Koscheck's biggest issue was the social media sucks, which I mean, it does. He's definitely gonna have to step that up. I mean, that was, I feel like, where Hooper really did well.
We might have a solution for that going forward.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, because it was
I know a guy.
Yeah, so that was piss poor, but I'm thinking at the end of the day, the racing was great. So if you're focused on racing over social media, that's fine. But obviously, I'm very big on I mean, everybody sees my social media side, and I think that's what kind of has branded myself. So when I'm looking at other people, I see the same. Like, that's obviously what people need to focus on a little bit more. Sadly, in today's age, I mean, it just is what it is. So in our sport, in our series, that's what you have to go for. But no, I'm thinking maybe doing some videos of track walk, and maybe I could get a little bit more in depth than what we can just here on the podcast, where you can't see what I'm seeing out there. But I do treat that very seriously, and this weekend was a little bit tough. The furthest point out in the cross test, like literally 1.5 miles, like as the crow flies, in the back of the parking lot, I snapped a chain, and I barely made the start. I missed the riders meeting. I had 4 minutes to spare. I was breathing hard. It was tough getting my gear on. I ran so damn far, but yeah, I mean, 3 times is kind of my thing, and at least twice. And again, if you can only do it once, really try to pay attention to exactly where the track lies, and use landmarks, waypoints, if you will, like roots, rocks, a tree that you may notice that stands out, a truck you pass, a piece of ribbon, whatever. Even at ISD, we use bottles. We'll take a bottle cap and we'll thread the bottle into
cheating.
It is. We'll take a bottle and push it into the ribbon on the side of the track, and then thread the cap on the back side of the ribbon so it hangs in the ribbon. And that's our marker, like, hey, aim at this, and we're going to start our turn here. So there's little things, that I do. I mean, there was a Michelob Ultra can that was flattened in one of the insides of a left-hander that was a double left, and I used it for the first cross test. I was leading on, and it was super dry, silty sand, and no tire tracks had been over it since the day before, so it just dried out. Being the first tire track, that makes it really, really tough to navigate every time. So I used this Michelob Ultra can that I saw while I was pedaling the track, put it exactly where I wanted to plant and make my turn, and I just kind of remembered that. But there's little things that I do to try to remember bits and pieces of the track to make it all play together.
See, and that is insane, and I feel like the average person does not think about that, and largely a part of this whole weekend review with Stu thing is having the insight of someone like yourself that's been there and done that. And I mean, just picking up on that little tip right there, now people are gonna take that and run with it. So I think
There's going to be so much trash in the woods next race.
hey, don't pick up that bottle. That's my marker.
Oh shit! Don't actually do that, but unless it's laying there, I don't do it. It's just got to be laying there. And at ISD, that's different.
Don't bring trash in the woods with you. But if there happens to be a beer bottle there,
America. Exactly.
No, but I mean that's really cool insight as to how it works. And I saw some of your stories about that this weekend when you were walking with Liam and couldn't tell who else was in the video, but you were kind of explaining that. Like, I heard you in the video say, hey, you got to look for a landmark to remember. So I think sharing that knowledge and, like you said, either doing a track work there or posting it, I think that could be something cool and that someone's going to take something very beneficial away from it. And real quick on the social media thing too, US Sprint Enduro, I saw that pick up a ton this weekend. So shout out Allie Spurgeon. I actually reached out and I was like, who's doing social media now? And I think Allie Spurgeon did a really good job of showing
I
everything
noticed the
going
test
on.
times and everything. You could keep up with the race through social media. Their scoring was actually a little bit difficult for me to kind of get through. I don't know.
Figure it out.
I'm illiterate, so like when it comes to me clicking on the website and trying to get the results, I never can. I had Mackenzie Tricker actually send it to me so that I could keep up with the race. But no, you can just click on their stories and watch that. So that was definitely good. You know, it's an easy way to see it. I feel like, you know, a lot of people do that as far as GNCC, everything. I mean, we watch Instagram. If we're not there, we watch the Instagram stories to kind of see what's going on. I mean, I can't sit there and watch. I can't. Yeah. Like the track trainers here. And he is saying like, yeah, that's how I keep up with it. But you look at Supercross and motocross. I can't sit there and watch press day all day, but I can easily check out a couple of the riders' stories that I follow and kind of see what's going on. I may not get all the details, but I've got a good grasp on it and I'm able to keep up. So that's definitely good to see that they stepped up their social game, and Koscheck's just going to have to do the same.
Yeah. So Koscheck, we'll talk. No, but I did think that was cool, and like she's posting reels and stories, and then Rob Mitchell with Enduro Works, he's been posting some really good content from there, like all those GoPro videos and stuff. I thought it was cool because I got to see some of the US Sprint Enduro tracks that I didn't get to see before.
Yeah.
But yeah, real quick, just gotta throw it out there. Joseph Garcia, you scared of him, dude?
Oh, me. Tell me another good one. No, he's fast. I mean, I would have been worried about racing him at the Sprint Enduro this weekend. But for 3 hours, I mean, I'm not going to count the kid out. He's, you know, we've talked about the mental side. He's the type that he's been so dominant in his career. He's been so good in the last few years at everything he does. He's going to come here expecting to win, which is half the battle. I mean, it really is. But, you know, I would say that there's at least going to be 3 or 4 of us sitting on the line that are expecting to win this weekend. So, you know, I'm not worried. It's 3 hours. It's different. Like it really is. If he wants to race GNCC, there's going to be a lot to learn. I see the comments. Like, a lot of people have counted me out. A lot of people have told me to, I don't know, it sounds like a bunch of Ricky Bobby lines, but pretty much.
Monsieur Belair.
Yeah, so no, I mean, I've seen the people like talking about how he's just going to come over and mop all the U.S. guys, and they're talking about Yuha and David Knight. I mean, dude, we're talking about over a decade ago. Like, pull your head out of your ass. Like, I mean, I'm sorry, but that, like, shit has changed. 10 years ago, guess what? The U.S. ISDE team also sucked. Now look at us. Like, I'm sorry. We figured out how to go fast. The U.S. has figured out how to go fast for 3 hours, too. It's not what it was. I mean, after those guys, yes, they paved the way for us to get better. And I mean, I am one of the largest UHA fans, like, and Knight too. Like, I mean, those were the guys when I was coming through as a kid. Like, that was who was winning in those times, and not just winning, but dominating. And I looked up to those guys. UHA came to my 9th birthday at the Wisp GNCC in 2004 and ate birthday cake with me. Like, I mean, to this day, I don't remember much from back then, but I remember that. Like, that was super cool. And he was badass. I mean, Joseph is one of the most talented kids I've ever seen on a motorcycle. I've gotten drunk with him, and he likes to party too, so I like his style. But 3 hours now is a different beast. And overseas, they don't ride amateur lines. They ride fast rider lines, pros. I mean, that's the World Enduro Championship. They ride with other World Enduro guys. They don't ride with C riders from the U.S. who have never really learned how to set up a corner properly. So for him to come and learn our style of racing, I don't think that it's going to catch on that quick. Yeah, for 2 hours, he can be very fast. But,
so here's my argument. You look at what Joseph did at the ISDE this past year. I mean, he overall the ISDE. I think he won every day. If he didn't, then it was close. But then
he lost one day.
Yeah, so lost one day, and you think about a guy on that level, like you said, he's gonna come over here with something to prove and like a chip on his shoulder, and like, all right, I'm gonna beat them on their own turf. So my whole thought process is 2 hours shouldn't be that big of an issue, but if he's out anywhere towards the front, one of the things that you've talked a lot about is the mental strength. And do you think he'll just be able to damn grit his teeth and clinch down and then make that 3rd hour happen? Or is that 3rd hour such a big deal? Like, is it such a big leap in physical versus mental?
It's so tough. Like, it's one of those things I feel like you have to do it. Like, used to, like, when Yuha and those guys were coming over here, it was like you pace, and then you race. Now it's like, you race, and there is no pace. So, it's one of those things. I don't know. I mean, I could be completely in left field here, but if I were to put money on a position, I would put him in 5th place. I think that if you give the kid a year, I mean, if you give the kid a year, I think that he could definitely be a force to be reckoned with over here. But each track is different, setup's different. Overall, like, he's so used to pinning it into sections and never thinking about saving his bike. We've got to think about making this thing last for 3 hours. So there's a little bit more than just racing. I mean, there's so much that it's not just riding. It's not just racing. I mean, there's so much that really goes into it. And when we're, thinking about how we're going to ride this section of track, it's a little bit more than just riding and racing. And, I feel like there's probably right now, and I'm not, again, trying to offend any other riders, but there's 4 guys right now that have the package. And it's going to be tough for him to beat those 4 consistently.
Speaking of those 4, and you're already putting Joseph past those 4 in the 5th place spot. A couple things with this whole Joseph Garcia thing coming over. You don't hear Steve Holcomb that much. Steve Holcomb is also coming over and getting in the mix. He's a factory beta rider, World Enduro champion, 3-time Enduro GP champion. He's coming over too. He doesn't get his own post, and people aren't talking about him. But regardless of that, you got 2 newcomers coming. There might be some more newcomers coming. What about the bike that we've seen out there? What about the defending champion? What about Ben Kelly? I mean, what about this guy that you went down to the wire with last year? This guy that you and him were battling back and forth? This guy that all the headlines going into the final race was you and Ben Kelly. Why? What do you think the reason for that is? Why aren't we talking about Ben Kelly? Why aren't we talking about Josh Strang, who's a former champ?
Yeah. I mean, my thoughts, like, I mean, I'm going to catch 22. I'm going to piss somebody off. But at the end of the day, I'm going to be blunt. So I'm going to tell you the way I see it, whether I piss them off or not. Social media. Dude, those guys at Caleb's have literally completely forgot about social media for the last month or whatever, 2 months, because apparently they're not trying to be distracted or whatever. I don't know. Clearly that I distracted them enough to make posts that it was distracting. So, like, obviously they're not that good at keeping their heads down. So,
Dang.
you know, to be blunt, I was active on social media. My followers have engaged into my post, and it's kind of overshadowed the other guys at this point because they have done nothing on social media. And that's half of our jobs anymore. Again, I hate to say it, but it's relevant. Like, you have to consider this. You have to consider that when people are hyping up a season, they're going to forget your name if you forget to put it out there. I mean, it's a sad reality, but, like, I mean, I looked up to Caleb. So, like, I still look up to Caleb. So this is by no means disrespecting Caleb at all, but, like, in a year, it's like people forgot who Caleb Russell was. And for me as a professional racer, that's tough to see because I know that one day when my career's over, it's going to be the same way. Like the second you step off, it's like, okay, he was a somebody. But, like, dude, this year, Caleb had just stepped away. I mean, he was the fucking man for 8 years. And he had done things that nobody in the world has done. And you see him step away, and it's like, okay, Caleb who? Or, you know, the new kids coming in, the 50 dads, they don't even know. So, like, you know, I see like staying relevant is just as big. Like, you know, obviously it's not the dog on Caleb because he's retired, but, like, guys like Ben and these guys, like, it's part of their career now. They have to stay relevant. Like, they're forced to need to stay relevant. I mean, my sponsors literally pay me to post on social media. I make money to post on social media. If I deleted my social media tomorrow, I can tell you that I would probably see a major decrease in my next year's salary or whatever offers that I had that I could bring to the table. You know, people are putting, when you see it, they're tagging myself and Joseph because I've stayed relevant. Ben is the number one guy. He's got the number one plate. I don't have that number one plate. The reason that they're not tagging him, I don't know. I mean, that's the only thing that I could say. That's the only thing that I could see. I again may be completely in left field here. That's just my insight. You know, obviously my insight's not always correct. I mean, I was talking shit on Lane at the first Sprint Enduro. Apparently he had a broken rib. So I didn't know that. I don't know the fact. But, you know, this is the best that I have that I can gather from what I have to see. And that's my personal opinion.
So,
these guys stayed so quiet.
Let me play devil's advocate to that. And I know, first of all, I'm on your side. Like, I think social media is not going away. I think it's only getting bigger. And I think your relevancy on social media, especially in an advertisement-driven world, is only going to grow. If you aren't marketable, then there's not going to be a market for you. That's just my personal opinion. But to play devil's advocate of that, I mean, Ben is a low-key guy. He wants to show up. He wants to race. He wants to win. He wants to go home. So I think the argument on the counter side of that is having that number one plate and getting the championship. That's, I guess, his way of staying relevant, even without the social media or without being like a character or loud and running around doing that kind of stuff. What do you think that weighs from a sponsor's outlook? You got the guy with the number one plate, and you got the guy that is in front of all the eyeballs. Like, do you think those even out, or do you think there's a clear-cut front runner in that from a marketing and sponsorship and profitability standpoint.
On marketing and profitability, I mean, I'm sorry. Let's be honest. What would you pick? I'm just being realistic. I'm not even. I don't even have to say it. Like, I'm not even going to have to answer that because I feel like everybody that's listening understands what I'm coming from, where I'm coming from. Sorry. So.
And
it's tough.
To preface that, this is not only for people that are listening. This isn't XC1 guys battling for championships and trying to make a living riding motorcycles. This is all the way to the C-Class guys. I mean, dude, I'm a C-Class rider that it's marketability across all stages, the way that you market. So it's not just about getting contracts, but for everyone else that's listening, marketability and things like that versus the results-driven thing, that's going to help you get sponsorships and gear and boots and helmets and all that. So, Stu, before you finish that, I was just getting that out there that it's not only at your level. I mean, this trickles down throughout the whole thing. Obviously, other guys are trying to get free product and not trying to get a salary, but it's the same principle.
Yeah, I mean, it's even at an early age as a kid, I understood that, and I tried to. I mean, my mom and dad made me call sponsors as 10 years old, and some of those sponsors I still work with today, and I still have really good relationships with. You know, Dale Spangler used to work for Fly Racing, and I was riding for Fly Racing, and I worked with Dale Spangler, and I remember Mom making me call him when I was literally a kid. So back then, social media wasn't important, but the personal touch was. Now the social media has kind of taken this stuff over and overshadowed that. So, you know, even at an early age, you've got to be aware of how to build a brand. But you look back at these guys, like Eli Tomac has had probably a longer, I don't know exactly statistically, but I would say a longer career than Dungey did. And probably equally as successful. But his net worth is less than half of what Ryan Dungey's is. Ken Roczen, who has really been not as successful as either of those guys, is in the middle, but he's worth more than Tomac. So Tomac, in my eyes, is the Ben Kelly. He keeps his head low. He focuses on the obtainable goals and what he needs to focus on, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I'll tell you why here in a second. Where then you've got Ken Roczen, who I'm not a huge Roczen fan. I've been through a very similar injury with 5 surgeries on my wrist. So I respect what he came back from because I had the struggles. I was off for 2 years. It sucked. I tried to come back. It just didn't work out. It took a couple more years before I ever was good again. And I was younger, so it was easier for me to come back. And you know, I still feel that. I still feel that wrist every day. I mean, they cut a bone out of my hand or out of my wrist. Like my wrist is screwed. So, but he puts himself out there and he makes himself marketable. And whether it's right or not, I mean, he complains a lot, he cries a lot, but people pay attention to what he's saying. They see what he's saying. They engage in his posts. They interact with him. He interacts with people, and he's personable. He has that personal touch where he seems like a normal guy. So it's, you know, to me, you've got, and this is where I said I'd get back to it on as far as what is really worth what and value to sponsors. There are 2 people out there as far as people that you can pay. One, you've got people who force themselves in front of the camera or force themselves in front of you. Those are the Ben Kellys and the Ryan or the Eli Tomacs. They force themselves in front of you by results. They're there. They're going to be in front of the camera, and you're going to see them because they have a good result. And then there's the other people that you want to go see what they're doing. That's where myself and Ken Roczen come into play. whether Roxon, I don't even know what place he got yesterday, but everybody checked, everybody looked. You cannot tell me you didn't look down that list and see where he finished. And there's not a person out there that can say they looked down that list. They knew he wasn't on the podium, but they wanted to know, where did Ken Roxon finish, whether you like him or hate him. So there are two people out there that are marketable. The people that are there every weekend and push themselves in front of the crowd because of results, or the guys who have pushed themselves in front of the crowd because people want to see what they're doing, what they're up to, who they are, how they're acting this week, what kind of shit may have come out of their mouth. At the end of the day, they're both marketable. The most marketable is when you can obtain both. That's where Ryan Dungey is. Ryan Dungey was extremely marketable, but also had the results.
That's a different market, though. Like, he's got Target and he's got Wheaties, and that's cool.
Why do you think he had those? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but Ryan Dungey
is he had both.
Ryan Dungey reminds me of the kid that reminded the teacher that homework was due at the end of class.
I hate Ryan Dungey. I sat beside him in an autograph signing. I think he's an asshole. I tried to talk to him 3 or 4 times throughout my career. He acted like his shit didn't stink. But, man, in front of a camera, he made you feel like you were the only girl in the world. You know? I mean, I'm just saying, like, he was very good at being marketable, but also had results to back it up. I couldn't stand. He was boring to watch ride. He was too precise. But when I'm teaching riding schools, I use him as one of the guys that I base what I'm talking about. You know, precision. He was so precise. He was so boring to watch. But guess what? It works. I mean, you can't argue with that. He had both. So, you know, whether I like the guy or don't, it doesn't matter. He was marketable. Obviously, a different way of marketability than I am. But he was marketable and he had results. So that's the ultimate goal. If you can figure out a way to have both.
That's very true, and that's cool insight to hear. And I know you told me 30 to 40 minutes, like an hour ago, so I don't want to take up a whole bunch of your time. Hopefully Jade hasn't thrown stuff at you yet, but I gotta ask you. You said 4 guys. You put a number on, not 4 or 5, not 4, 5, 6, not 3. You said 4 guys.
Ooh.
Who are they?
I don't know if I can answer this right now. I've been told that I can't answer this right now.
Uh-oh.
I'm gonna piss off 10 more. That's the problem. You know what? I'm going to list 3 of the 4.
I heard her in the.
And then you can guess. Actually, this will be good for your social media. Take a guess at who the other one would be. Obviously, Ben Kelly. He's got the number 1 plate. Myself, I feel like I'm sitting second, and I know how to win races. And again, this is just from a realistic standpoint. I'm not bragging on myself at all. I mean, I listed Ben first. I hate when people say that I'm being cocky. I'm just realistic.
Who's the man? Listen, before you answer this, there's a lot of names that can fill this 3rd spot. Just keep in mind, there's a lot.
There is. 3rd is going to be Thad Duvall because he's been there. He's done it. I mean, at the end of the day, he knows how to win GNCCs. He was 2nd place, 3-4 years in a row. I mean, the guy knows how to ride. He obviously finished out the series with a 3rd first, so he knows how to be there. The 4th, I'm going to leave you guys guessing. There are a lot of names, and you can sit there and you can weigh variables. You can weigh ages. You can weigh as far as how fast you think they are. At the end of the day, there's only going to be 1 more, and I will let you guys know who that 4th one is on Monday after Big Buck. And if he does what I expect, no, Jade's already guessing and she's wrong. You're wrong.
Uh-oh. I want to ask who she guessed, but then we're going to run through the whole XC1 class here in a minute. But I have a third person in that. Well, now we done muddied the waters because you talked about a guy that's been there, done that. There's only 2 former champions on the line.
Nope.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Oh no, I know.
Interested to see who you're talking about there after Big Buck. So, what's your prediction for yourself with Big Buck? 5 days, 6 days away.
You know, I've had a pretty bumpy off season with some minor injuries and some little setbacks here and there. I was really, really concerned going into that National Enduro how I would feel. And I feel like that was one of the most demanding National Enduros I've ridden. So it was 60 race miles plus and rough, deep sand, and it was good. I finished really solid, a lot stronger than I thought I would have. I think at my level, I've built a really good base. So even with some of the setbacks we had in December, everything's looking really positive for the season. I don't expect I'll be unless something catastrophic happens. I don't expect to be further back than second. I know for sure there's going to be 2 guys that are going to be really, really tough there. Really tough this weekend, and I expect it. I'm ready for it, and that's why I love racing. Like I don't ever want to line up expecting to win every weekend. I hope that I can win, and I know that I've got what it takes. But I think that at this point, anything less than a podium, anything that less than a podium is unacceptable. At this stage of my career, and by the end of the season, that may completely change. I might be shooting towards top 5s, but right now, the way that I'm riding, the way that I'm feeling, anything less than a podium is unacceptable. And I'm just the biggest thing is I'm looking forward to starting the season. Last year that was something that I didn't even get to do. So being able to start, being able to line up for round 1 is good. And I think I'm going to sit back and watch some of those guys for a little bit and let them weed themselves out. And I want to study my competition a little bit. So we'll play it smart. We'll do what we got to do, and let those boys see what they want to do up front, and we'll be there for the third hour.
Well, man, 2017, the first win of your XC1 career came at Big Buck. Might be the next win of your XC1 career, depending on how things shake out this weekend. Hoping the best, rooting for you. Can't wait to talk about it. Obviously, next Monday we'll have you on here. If you finish below second, or not even going to put it into existence off the podium, you better not have no bad phone signal on Monday, because I heard from a few people that the moment that some of this stuff doesn't get backed up, you're going to have some explaining to do out here.
Yeah, I could. Yeah, no, definitely. I feel like I've backed up everything I've said thus far in the season. So, if I can't back it up, you should probably call whoever won and have them on for the Monday show. And honestly, I'll sit back and listen. Again, I'll bring it up. I want to see Thad and Caleb and Strang on here. Like I want to. I feel like all 3 of us, or all 4 of us, like at this point, Caleb can be very realistic. I guess everybody within reason. None of us can just go completely ape shit and talk about the things that the industry has really done to us over the years. But at the end of the day, I think all of us can be realistic as far as with each other and with ourselves, and maybe throw in a different spin on the racing. I mean, I've always entertained what Caleb has to say about me, whether it's been good or bad. I've asked him what he thought. He doesn't like the stuff that I do. Like even this podcast, he probably doesn't like, because it's too flashy for his style. And he is, he was always one of those guys that just wanted to stay focused, later in his career. Like that was kind of his thing. He blocks out the bullshit and focuses on himself, which is good for him. And then, Strang I feel like he's pretty, he's kind of at that older stage, and he's teaching these kids and these Aussie kids that are coming over here, and he's helping them along the way. So again, another guy that sees both stages of it, and Thad same way. I mean, he grew up in GNCC, right, with Caleb, kind of battling with Caleb the whole way, and he's made it, from GNCC youth, and he's kind of at the top of his career, and I'd like to see one of those guys jump on. And if I don't win, I hope that you pull one of them out. Probably Caleb would talk the most shit. Give him 6 Miller Lights and let him go.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be no problem. He'll agree to that.
Yeah, exactly. There, I figure. I mean, you could pay him in Miller. Maybe 7. Maybe so. You get him to 7 Miller Lights, and it'll really come out. The last time I had him with more than 7 Miller Lights, we stayed up till maybe 8:30 in the morning. It was bad.
Oh man.
Oh, sorry. Jade said it doesn't count as staying up because we never went to sleep. Right. Yeah, that was one of those nights where I was listening to what he had to say about me, to me, whatever. And like I said, I feel like in early parts of careers, you get very offended by what people have to say. And as it goes on, you kind of realize like you can learn something from just about anybody. But it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to next weekend. And if I don't win, just make sure that one of those guys is on here to talk shit.
Last question. And we talk about Joseph coming over. He's like right in the middle of his prime, and you're worried about that third hour. What? Just your opinion. Caleb Russell, greatest of all time to do it at GNCCs. He comes off the couch. Can he still win races right now?
Give him 3 months. Yes.
3 months of training or 3 months of racing?
Give him 3 months of training and racing, and yes. Will he be as dominant? No. Caleb kind of told me, he said it was, and again, back to mental. I think when he started this last year of motocross, for him, it was more or less, he had done what he set out to do, and probably done way more than what he had set out to do. And he said, I just lost that edge. I just didn't want it the way that I once wanted it. So, with that being said, he can still win races even without wanting it, because he knows it. There's a difference in wanting it and knowing you can do it. When you want it and know you can do it, obviously that's when you become what Caleb Russell was. But no, he could definitely give him a couple races and he would be right up front.
What a statement to part ways on. But man, as always, thank you so much for joining us. Especially this is a little bit of a bonus episode that we added at the end of last week. So once again, man, can't thank you enough for your time. I think this episode here is jam-packed full of information for people to kind of take home and do what they will with it. We're a few days away from Big Buck. Obviously, the kind of main stage that we've been setting up here the entire off season. And a little bit of a redemption run for you. As you mentioned, missed Big Buck last year. So we'll see you out there on the starting line. Thank you again for this. And can't wait to talk to you next Monday to talk about Big Buck.
Sounds good. I look forward to it.
All right. Thanks, man. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks. Yeah.